I'm Chris Carter. I'd like to talk to you today about palettes, travel palettes specifically. For years, I used this palette. It's a Winsor Newton metal palette, black enamel, and I had to replace it with this one last year when I stepped on this by mistake and bent it a little bit. So it does close again. I rebent it, and I still love it a lot better than this one, and I'll explain why. This one was kind of pricey. I sent away to England for it, and this one, I think I got it Dick Blick or Cheap Joe's or someplace, and it was a fraction of the price. And it also came with an insert like this. Now, I'm going to jump ahead a little bit because the system I use now is different from the one I started with, where I put my half pans in this when I had this one. The reason I no longer have that one is because it got really rusty. It was very hard to clean because it would sit on the top and water would get underneath. So I was able, because of discovering the little travel palette made by Expeditionary Art, the magic of magnets. So let me put those aside for a minute. This was close to the original version of the Expeditionary Art travel palette. It's a business card holder, and inside there is, underneath these pans, is a business card magnet. And these are little cosmetic tins for eyeshadow, powders, that sort of thing. And you can purchase them wholesale from suppliers, which is really great because these do rust a bit. Now, and then, you have to keep them clean, but you can buy 100 of them for next to nothing, and so you can just keep replacing them. This magnet, you can buy them by the box at Staples or someplace. And then you just take off the adhesive back, put it in the bottom, and then your tins hold in really well. Okay, so this was fantastic. The only thing I didn't like about this was that it did not have the magnet here. I added that. I found this, which there's a little white sticker. It's supposed to be the mixing palette. I found it useless because I mix juicy wet mixes often, and I'll want a puddle of warm colors and I'll want a puddle of cool colors, and I really couldn't do anything on this. It would drip all over my lap, and that just wasn't very good. So I thought, well, if I can use these with magnets, why not put a little piece of magnet here, and then I can take tins, caps from jars, and put it there and use that to mix. So I thought, oh, that's great. The next part of this was I thought, oh, it's super great with the magnet. I can use that on my little supports that I use, the foam core. And I thought I can just put a magnet here and then put that onto it. But look at that. The original ones, the Expeditionary Art ones, were made of aluminum. And aluminum will not stick to magnets at all. So I thought, okay, that's a real problem. And I love the idea that I could have a sketch pad and be able to put my sketchbook on it and have my my palette sticking to it. So I went online and I ordered myself some stainless steel business cards, and that worked really well because it did stick. Some of them that I ordered, well, actually this had been a gift to me. It's a really nice one with a little bit of Art Deco. I thought, oh, I can use this for my palette. Problem is that the pans fit in nicely, but there's not room for the pans to fit in and the magnet. So it didn't fit. So it doesn't always work. And now Expeditionary Art has updated their travel palette, and they now make it in a stainless steel case. So you can go ahead and get it from Expeditionary Art, and they still don't have this part solved, but all you have to do is get a magnet of your own, put it on it, and then you can put your cups or your tins and get extra tins. I use these for mixing. That works really well. Okay, so this is the arrangement that I have. I don't need a lot of different pigments. This red one dried up, so it keeps falling out. This is all that I really need. I have a warm and cool yellow. I have a warm and cool red. I have a warm and cool blue. I do have a Viridian because I like mixing Viridian and alizarin for some darks. And then I have a cobalt turquoise, which I cannot get by mixing any of the others. If I really want to add another one, I will add a cobalt violet here and then just put another one of these little ones. But in the meantime, I have these as mixing areas, and then I have these extra ones as mixing areas, and I can just take those and put them there, and then I can put water in there. I can do all kinds of things with it. And this little hole that you see, I drilled this hole in there. This hole is for a very special use. This goes through it, and I can use this attached to a special board that I have, and this part is tied to me, and I can paraglide with my son flying through the air painting. And this is, if this were to fall off, it's still attached and it won't fall down and hit somebody in the head and cause damage to them. I also have my fountain pen attached to me. Everything that I use up there in the air while flying around is attached to me. Back to these. Now with the magnets, I thought, oh, I can use that here too. And since this is already metal and magnetic, all I need to do is use half pans, glue little magnets on there, and then I can put as many as I want. I can change things out easily. It's fantastic. So what I've done here is, this is also metal. For this one, I am using the container because this is not a flat surface the way this is. So these don't sit really well, and I ran into problems with them not adhering. So I went back to using the flat, and then the center part, which is generally open, this part, where people often store their brushes, I just add more pigments. Okay. Now, even though the magnets are self-adhesive, I still glue them. Here's a full pan. Take the adhesive off. This is Loctite. You know, any kind of super glue will work. Stick it on there, and then I let it dry. Now for water containers, this is metal, so that's already magnetic. What you can do, if you want to bring a water supply that you also want to close up, glue a magnet to the bottom of this. I got so hooked on being able to use magnets to make my sketching and painting opportunities easier and more frequent that I went ahead, I made larger board so that even this will adhere to it a little bit better. It really helps if I'm drawing on the train or on a plane or something. I also made a nice leather case. This was a pair of pants that I cut up, and I have magnets along here. I can store paper in it, close it up, and travel around with it, or if it starts to rain, I can put the paper in safely. Take it out, pull my pocket painter out of my pocket, and put it up here, and I'm good to go. Now, another one that I used with the magnet idea is this. This was also a cosmetic container, and these are tiny little cosmetic tins. And I used one like this for a long time. The reason this is so clean is because every time I made one of these and went somewhere, somebody would be intrigued, and if they were an artist, I would just give it to them and say, well, try it. So then I stopped using it because I moved on to the tiny Altoid. And here I've got two mixing wells, one for cool mixes, one for warm mixes. And I have 3 half pans and 1 full pan, and these have the magnets on them too. And what I do is I use Ultramarine Blue for so many things. I use it to mix my greens, I use it to mix my violets. So I have a full pan of ultramarine. I have 1 yellow, and that's either Gamboge or Aureolin. And I have 2 reds. I have an alizarin crimson, and I have a cadmium red light. And the reason I have 2 is because I really can't make any violets with a cadmium red light. And I have a hard time making oranges and warm yellows with the alizarin crimson. So I opt to have 4 with me, and I can do just about anything with those 4 pigments. So this is what I use instead of this one, and this really fits easily into pockets. All right, now another thing I want to mention for the traveling is if you do have a board like this, or even, let's say, a smaller one, that you can use oil painting tins. These are for solvents, but they can hook on, and you can put water in there, okay? And they come in all sizes. This one didn't have a lid, but that's fine because I don't need a lid on it when I'm using it for water. And this little one didn't have a lid, but that's fine. This one does have a lid. So if I'm someplace and I have a bunch of dirty water, but I can't just dump it. What if I'm in a restaurant or something? Then I just put the top on it and then dump it when I get someplace where it's safe to dump. So these are also very, very useful. And if you have supplies that make it a no-brainer to paint, then you're going to sketch and paint more, and you're going to get better. I used this palette to do an entire Dala in the Newark Penn Station train station. And it was simple. You don't need to have a whole bag of supplies with you. Everything fits into a small pocketbook or my pockets. And that's how I ended up drawing and sketching every day. The magnet also works. This is a washer, and the reason for the washer is so that the ink vial doesn't fall through. Okay? And this is a closet rod that's been drilled out in the middle to fit this vial. This also sits so you can shake it around. What this means is I can paint using a dip pen when I'm out and about, even standing in a line with people around me. Even if they knock into me a little bit, it's okay, because this isn't going to go anywhere. Now the other 2 travel palettes are these 2. Now this one I used, I think it was like 2014 or so, when I went to Provence to paint, and it was great. It was just great. I loved it. And I was working not just in sketchbooks, but I was working on larger watercolor paintings too. And it was so handy, and it had so much paint left in it that I started using it in the studio at home. And I think for 2 years, this was my studio palette. Nice deep wells, and it took me a while to use up that paint because I was traveling a lot and using my travel palettes. What I don't like about this is that you can't easily clean just one color because it's all attached. These don't come out. That's the only complaint that I have about this, aside from the fact that it is kind of big and, you know, kind of thick, bulky. But still, it's called the Shy, and I adore it. Last year, a friend of mine asked me about this one. It's very similar in design. Opens up. Okay, inside here, I think, I'm not remembering correctly, but there was a pan that fit inside that had this kind of pan going where I couldn't clean them separately. And I thought, well, I'm just going to put magnet down there, and then again, I can put whatever I want in whatever way I want. So that's what I did. And this is, of course, bulkier than either this or this, but it is great for travel, and it's also great for the studio. This is not the business card magnet. You can also purchase sheets. Okay, this is a sheet, a magnetic sheet, and it's really meant for sign painters so that this would adhere to a truck or a car. I'm going to be using this palette for most of the painting in this course. I do want to keep reminding you about the ease of carrying paints with you so that you can create Dala art wherever you go. I want to be mixing up plenty of puddles to show you how to push the puddle, pull the puddle, lay down a glaze, lay a wash. They're all the same thing. Just to recap, you have a lot of options. I would suggest that you either purchase one of these wonderful business card painting palettes from Expeditionary Art, or you can make it yourself. It's not that hard to do, but I'd like to support Expeditionary Art too because she really changed my painting life and the way that I traveled. I always painted every day, but I probably doubled the amount of opportunities I had to paint when I was just outdoors or walking, hiking, wherever I was, because of her just unique little business card pocket palette. And then we have this. As long as you leave the pan, the bottom pan in it, you can easily use the magnets with this one also. Let's get to painting in our Dalas. If you'd like to view more of my work, go to chriscarterart.com. Thank you for watching.